Okay, I'd like to say hello to everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. My name's Michael Crisco. Now, Edward Talbert was my uncle, and I want to tell you about Edward and everything that I know. But first off, let me say a couple of thank yous here before I start. All right, I'd like to say thank you to Stony Bedfield and all his staff here at Prospect Baptist Church. Thank you so much, Stony. They've been a big help. Also, I'd like to thank the Singing Americans. Here they are. You've heard them. If you ever get a chance to hear the Singing Americans, you need to go listen to them. They sing in all different occasions, and you just need to go hear them sing. Okay. Now, also, Charlotte Magnus over here. She's been a member, not a member, but feels like family for my family for a long time. We also have the Stanley County Director, Veteran, Jerry Ullman, and he's going to speak, and also the Talbot Wagner VFW post, their commander, Bill Crowley, he'll just say a few things, and any other veterans from the DAV and the Veterans of Foreign War may be here. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, now, when our family got together about this service, we wanted to have, the most meaningful service that we could to honor Edward. And we thought not just Edward, but all of the service personnel that gave their lives on December 7th, 1941 there in Hawaii. Just honor them also. Also, to me, this is a good time to honor all veterans. All wars, all conflicts, anything that's went on in our country, that's going on now and in the past. To me, there's not enough days to honor veterans. We have Memorial Day, lots of times on 4th of July we do, now on Veterans Day. But to me, we need to honor all veterans every day. So this is a celebration for all veterans. All right, now, on December the 20th, 1941, my grandparents received a telegram from the Navy stating that their son was missing after the Pearl Harbor attack. Then a letter came later in March, it's about 3 months, January, February, that's right, 3 months later, the 2nd, 1942, the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, affirmed Edward's death. Of course, the bombing and the attack on Pearl Harbor, that put the United States in World War II. And Edward Talbert was the first person from Stanley County to die in World War II. There was a funeral here for Edward in the spring of 1942, and the newspapers read as approximately 1,000 people attended, and this was Edward's church. Okay. All right, so let me kind of start at the beginning for Edward. Edward, his middle name was Everett Talbert. He was born March 26, 1922. Now, he enlisted in the Navy in June of 1940, right after he graduated from New London High School. And reading, and then what the principal said, he was an honor student at New London. Principal said having made excellent grades and also being a good athlete. I believe he played basketball for a couple of years. Okay. And because of his good nature and friendly disposition, he was especially popular at New London. And this comes from the principal, L.A. Price, spoke of him as being one of the most all-around students that ever attended New London during his time at New London. A boy of good moral habits, he was a member of Prospect Church here, and he took part in many religious activities. Now, Prospect Church was my grandparents' church here. It's my parents' church here. I grew up here. Me and my sister grew up here. And we have great memories of this church. And as you noticed, there's a stained glass window. We got that picture here. And that was to honor Edward. And Prospect was just like family. I mean, I'm sure it is like that now. It was like family. I had more mamas shaking their finger. I could not get out of line. That be all. I mean, I don't know how it is today, but that's just, you kept the right path here, Prospect. And that was a wonderful thing after I look back. Let's see. Okay, my grandfather, let me just speak about him just a minute. My grandfather My grandfather was in World War I, veteran of World War I. He served in France. Now, he fought in the trenches there, and he was gassed in the battlefield. And he came home disabled from World War I. And my grandfather and grandma lived right beside each other. And he was kind of pitiful, and I felt so sorry for him. He could hardly do anything, but he was a good grandfather. He bought me, I think me and my sister, our winter coats. He bought me our first encyclopedias, first typewriter, the little things. And I think when I got 16 and I had that 58 Chevrolet picked out, I think he helped out with that too. So he was a good grandfather. He really was. Okay. Now, back to Edward. Edward began his military training in boot camp in Norfolk, Virginia, and that beginning on October. Now, while he was there, after he got his training, he took a train and traveled from the East Coast to all the way to he traveled to the West Coast, okay. And the train stopped in almost every depot. This is one of the letters that I have from him. And stopping at every depot, and being 18 years old, he noticed a lot of girls was waving at each depot station for all those sailors were traveling through. Now, being 18 years old, I'm sure that was a good thrill for him. Yeah, would have been for me. Okay, the train traveled across the country, and it arrived at Los Angeles, California. And when they got there, they had to take a streetcar to San Pedro, where he was assigned to the U.S. Oklahoma. And what they did with that group of sailors, they kind of divided the alphabet in half. The first half of the alphabet went to the USS Mississippi. The latter part, which is a Talbot, he went to the USS Oklahoma. Okay. All right. Now, in his letters, Edward wrote that he was always busy. They kept him busy, and the military can do that. I was in the Army for 2 years, so yeah, I kind of. But anyway, he was always studying his books, always learning what he could, and always having tests. All right. Now, while in California, he could have come home for a 30-day leave, but if he had done that, he would have missed his qualification for Seaman First Class, and he wanted to stay and study for that. And when you're in the military, you kind of want to step up as much as you can, so I can understand that. During his studies in the Navy, he was studying in optical school, and he was so thrilled in one of his letters there, and he made the highest grade among his classmates. And in his letter, he was very, very happy he'd done that. He was training to be a rangefinder on a ship. Now, when the Navy came to our house, which I'll tell you that a little bit, I asked them, well, what's a rangefinder? They, at that time, of course, we're talking back in the 40s, they didn't know, but the commander says, well, when I get back, I'll check with one of the old chiefs that's in and out of our office, and he might know. He kind of thought he might have been studying at that time to be a gunner's mate. And while there, Edward spoke very often of his captain. His captain really liked him, what Edward was saying. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, in one of Edward's letters to his parents, he told his mother that he had a present that he wanted to send home. Now, I said this was getting real close to Christmas then. He had a present for his mother and his daddy. He had picked out something special for his dad, and he would send it later. He said, also in the letter, he had a present for Geraldine. Now, Geraldine was my mother, and that was Edward's sister. And he would mail it just as soon as he can. And also, I was wondering, being 18 years old, did he have a girlfriend? Now, you guys, you had a girlfriend at 18. I know you did. So, being 18 years old, he had bought a bracelet, and he sent it home to his mother, and he asked his mother if you'll wrap that bracelet very pretty, and let my sister, let my mother Geraldine give it to his sweetheart. So he had someone special back home. Okay, don't know who she was, but we had a picture. Let's see, I don't see who. Becky Hollis. Me and her picked it out. Where's Becky? There you are. We kind of think we picked out who it was, yeah. Cornelia List. I kind of wonder when he was in Norfolk, maybe he did take a leave to come back home, because him and Cornelia List was sitting together there, so maybe that was his girlfriend. Okay, that's sweet, yeah, all right, send a bracelet home, all right. Let's see, all right. Now, later on, Edward wrote to his parents that they would be leaving, they'd be arriving in Hawaii, so there's a gap in here, Hawaii. He was still very busy studying and had little time for himself. Now, while traveling to Hawaii in the Pacific Ocean, they conducted many exercises in the water and that. Now, okay, that is all the letters that I have from him. So when he graduated from high school and then went to the Navy at Norfolk and went to California, seems like I only had about 3 or 4 letters that we had that was left on. There was a big gap there from January all the way to December 7th, 1941. My grandparents just didn't keep them. I guess you just can't keep everything. Letters. But I feel like he was a very happy young man, being 18, graduating from high school, going to Norfolk, Virginia. From Norfolk, Virginia, traveling by train all the way across the United States. Now I left out one thing that's really interesting. Hang on one second. Let me tell you this. That's a very second. All right. Okay. Okay. I just want to tell you that. Okay. All right. Well. Kind of lose my train of thought here. It's in here somewhere. Okay. I just feel like he was a very happy young man. Traveling all the way from the East Coast to West Coast, coming to California of all things. From California, you go to Hawaii. I mean, how happy can you get? I mean, that's a whole lot there in a few short months. Something I've never done that quick. So, all right. Now, Edward did write home in one of his letters. He told my grandparents to do not worry about the war that was going overseas. The talk on the ship was that we were not going to get involved in this war. Maybe the higher up might have known something was coming, but that was the talk on the ship. Now, during this time, while Edward was studying in Hawaii and learning everything that he could, okay, little did he know that the Japanese were planning their attack. Now, I know you have probably seen pictures of the Hawaii there, and the ships are on fire. You might see a few planes flying over. You may have seen some film about it, and let me just tell you, this attack on Pearl Harbor was very well planned, very well executed, very well practiced. They were ready. There were 56 ships were taken apart of the strike force on their way. 56. It wasn't just a handful of ships, a few airplanes. 56 ships was on their way. 3,000-mile journey, a secret journey. And on December the 7th, 1941, the sneak attack on the U.S. naval base in Pearl Harbor would happen. The Japanese, let me just run down some numbers for you. The Japanese had 6 aircraft carriers, 9 destroyers, 2 battleships, 8 tankers, 2 heavy cruisers, 2 flight subs, 1 light cruiser, and 5 midget subs. Okay. The attack on Pearl Harbor came in 2 waves. So in other words, it came in 2 different times. The first wave that came in, now, if you can imagine this, 48 level bombers, 51 dive bombers, 48 torpedo bombers, and 43 fighter planes. That's a lot of bombing and lots of planes. Now, after they done what they were trained to do and peeled off, the second wave came in. 54 level bombers, 79 dive bombers, and 36 fighter planes. So I have to talk with my hands, you know. So one wave came in, it kind of went out like that. The other wave came in, it kind of went like that, and they just kind of done like that. That's the drawings that I have from newspaper and the magazines, okay? This attack lasted 1 hour and 15 minutes and left 2,403 Americans dead and 1,179 wounded. The Japanese had intended to wipe out the U.S. fleet and cripple its Pacific stronghold. Thank goodness none of our American 7 aircraft carriers was at that location. Thank goodness they were somewhere else. The attack did destroy, and it did cripple about half of the American battleships, but the major of its destroyers and cruisers and subs were stationed somewhere else. Okay. In Hawaii, we had 92 Navy ships that were anchored there. That's a lot of ships to have in one location. I'm just going to rattle off a few names of some of the ships. They had the Pennsylvania, the California, the Maryland, the Oklahoma, Tennessee, West Virginia, the Arizona, the Nevada, the Tanger, the Utah, the Raleigh, New Orleans, San Francisco, and St. Louis. These are just some of the, just a few handful of ships there. I had one article that said the ones that had sank, that wasn't able, I know the Oklahoma they couldn't use again, Arizona, I'm not sure about those, but the California, the Oklahoma, West Virginia, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, it read that they had sunk, so, okay. I know each ship has its own story to tell. I wished I could tell you all the stories, but we can't do that today, yeah. Edward was on the U.S. Oklahoma. It was torpedoed 6 times while it was anchored in the harbor. The torpedo set off the Sheens magazine area. There was a terrific explosion that engulfed the vessel. The inferno of that vessel caused the ship to roll over. The ship sank in about 7 to 12 minutes. Okay. The Oklahoma lost 429 sailors and Marines were on the ship. The Arizona, I'd just like to mention that ship, because that's the one that everyone likes to see there at the memorial there at Hawaii. They lost 1,177 men. There was a 1,763 bomb missile that was fired from a Japanese ship. It hit the Arizona, and instantly some 1,000 men perished at that moment. Okay. In one of my letters that was sent to my mother, Geraldine, she received this letter, and she was told that one of the men from the North Carolina who served with Edward on the board of the USS Oklahoma, he thinks Edward was at his battleship station when the general quarters was called. He was at port side, okay, when the torpedoes hit. He was not below deck. I guess my family was worried that he drowned when they were attacked, but if he was topside, port side when the torpedoes hit, that would have been devastating too. But he wasn't sure. He just thinks he saw him headed that way. Well, but we'll never know for sure. And also at Wheeler Field, where we had our planes parked, Japanese, there was 25 bomber aircraft that were parked on the ground there. They also struck the barracks and any other buildings that they could strike. There's 168 planes that were destroyed. We had 159 damaged there. And there was another airfield, and I didn't list it here, that they attacked that too. Now, since we're talking about the airfield, the guy I roommated with in King's College that I went there, I was telling him about all this, and he's here today back here. Thank you for coming, Mike. Okay. He was telling me, when I was telling him about all this, he says, Mike, my daddy was there. And I thought, your daddy was at Pearl Harbor? Yes, he was there. He was there. I thought, golly, I just couldn't believe it. Has no one else come up and told me that they had a relative, some of you may have, that was there. He was in the Army. He was on guard duty. And at 7 that morning while he was on guard duty, he seen the first Japanese plane come in and drop a bomb. And I thought, okay, that's just, luckily, he survived World War II, and he spent the rest of his time in the Philippines. All right. Now, in the months, in the days and the months and few years after the attack, the remains of the men lost aboard the Oklahoma were recovered. All right. Only 35 were identified. The unidentified remains were buried at the National Memorial Cemetery that at the Pacific, and it was called Punch Bowl. There was 46 plots there. Almost half of the Americans who died at Pearl Harbor are buried there at the cemetery. Long time ago, that used to be a active volcano crater. Of course, that was many years. I think all of Hawaii is about a volcano way back. But anyway, but now that island is just, I got some pictures. It's just beautiful green grass with the white crosses and the American flags on it, nice trees. It's just really shame. It's a historical, not historical, but a tourist attraction there. And I was talking to one man just this past week that he had been there and he had seen that. The Hawaiians call that area the Hill of Sacrifice. Okay. Now, for my parents, Edward's, for my grandparents, which was Edward's mother and father, and my sister and his sister Geraldine, who was my mother, this was the end of the story for them. There was a funeral here at Prospect Jack Baptist Church. I had mentioned 1,000 people was here, and that's all the letters that I have that my grandparents kept. That is all the letters that I have. Let me see. I want to do this before I go any further, before I take you to the present day. This is a gold star banner. I don't know if I didn't know nothing about gold star banners until I got this was sent in the mail to me, and it was sent by a Patrick McCarthy Sr. He was a commander in the United States Navy, and he was retired. He does this, and he sends it to, he has sent many of them over many years, and he finds a story like what I had. He likes to mail this to the people. Okay, let me see here. Let me get my act together here. The Gold Star Banner. Okay, this started in World War I. This is what the families did in World War I. They hung banners. Of course, this is just a small one. I'm sure they had big ones. They'd hang them out at their house. They would put a blue star on here, and that meant you had a service member serving in a war. If your relative had died in the war, you put a gold star on here, in remembrance of them, a gold star. Okay, now, let me see. Let me get all my notes together here. That started a gold star organization kind of. They had the gold star mothers, they had the gold star spouses and gold star wives, and this is still going on today. We had one person come to our house just yesterday from Channel 3. As soon as she walked in, she says, Gold Star. I'm a member of the Gold Star. So it is going on still today. That's just a wonderful thing. I just want to tell you all that. Okay. And one more thing before I get into present day. All right. This right here. Okay. This right here. This is the only thing I got at Edwards. Right here. This, went around like that. This is part of the uniform, and they also wear vests today. Now, everybody has asked me, how did you get that? He was in the ship that rolled over, sank, and how did you get that? Well, here's what happened. After they finished their boot camp in Norfolk, of course they got on the train and went from the East Coast to the West Coast. Now, on the train, they had bunk beds. The top bunk bed had a window. Of course, the bottom one didn't. So what they did, they flipped a coin every night, so no one could get the top bunk bed. So I figure a bunch of young guys, they wasn't too neat about their clothes. So this got swapped. The other man had Edwards, and he had the other man's. So I believe his name was Roy Harwood. So in 1995, Roy was going through his old Navy stuff. Sometimes military guys, we like to go through it, have a little remembrance of what went on. He went through his old stuff. He pulled up the scarf, and he opened it up, and he looked at it, and he thought, well, there's a number on here. And he thought, that's not my number, that's Edward's number. So they swapped scarves there. So when they done that, he thought, well, gosh, I got to send this home to my mother, Geraldine Crisco, and let her have it. So he did. He got it in the mail. He sent it to Carl Talbert. I don't know if y'all know Carl Talbert. He was a cousin of Edwards. He was also there at Salt Lake City, Utah, when the bombing went off. One of the bombs hit a lot of concrete, blew the concrete up. It hit Carl in the head, and they sent him to the hospital. But luckily, he was able to survive, and he retired from the 20 years in the Navy, and he was shipped elsewhere. So, but that is the only thing that I got of Edwards there. All right, and I do have a picture out on the table here. It's got my mother holding up that scarf in 1995. All right, now we've talked about the 1940s here. Okay, all right, the early 1940s. Now let's jump all the way up to 2013. It's kind of like you got a book and you're reading it, and you think you've read the whole book, and Edward died and passed away, and my family realizes that's where Edward is going to be. I'd give anything if my mother was here. Oh gosh. Okay, now to get my thoughts going again. Okay, in 2013, all right, present day, getting up close to present day, I received a call from the United States Navy. Phone was ringing, and I looked at the phone, and it says Department of United States Navy. My first thought was, how dare someone use that as a spam call? I mean, really, you get all kinds. I did. I thought, gosh, the phones are ringing. And I thought, I was in the Army, the Navy wouldn't call me. Phones are ringing. And then I thought, Edward was in the Navy, I better answer. So I answered the phone, and the man on the other end says, are you Michael Crisco? I said, yes, I am. Where are your parents, Gurley and Dora Talbot? I said, yes, sir, they are. Your mother was Geraldine Crisco, and that was Edward's sister. I said, well, yeah. You got a sister named Linda Hollis? I said, I sure do. So then he said, and your uncle was Edward Talbot that was killed December 7th, 1941 in Hawaii. And I said, yes, that's correct. So he identified himself. He was calling from the United States Navy Department of Defense, the POW, the MIA, Casualty Accounting Agency. He says, we have had permission to exhume the graves of the U.S. Oklahoma, the unknowns, at the National Memorial Cemetery there in Hawaii, in cooperation with the cemetery officials, the government, and the Navy Department. We will exhume all remaining cactus associated with the U.S. Oklahoma. And we will transfer all these remains to 2 laboratories, one in Pearl Harbor and the other in an Air Force Base in Nebraska. Now, because of the recent advance in forensic science and technology, we want your DNA. And I thought, how's it going to get my DNA? I wasn't quite up on DNA. I thought, how's it going to get my blood? That's what I thought. But see, he explained it to me. So he mailed packages for me and my sister to do, and to return them to the Navy. Of course, it was 3 plastic bags with 3 swabs. We swabbed the left side of our mouth, placed that in there and sealed it up. The right side of our mouth, the whole mouth, 3 bags we sent back. Okay, then we did get a phone call that they had received it, and this would just take a while, he says, just be patient. 2 years went by. I received another letter from the U.S. National Defense Department, POW, MIA, and he says, we're still working on Edward's case. This takes time, just be patient. I said, well, okay. Now, that's 2015. Then I get a call from 2021. I received a call from a lady called Deborah King. I can just remember her name. Sounds like somebody I ought to know, but she was so nice. She says, I have Edward's file here on my desk in my hand. I'm going to forward it to the next area of what they do. You'll get a phone call hopefully in 2 or 3, 4 weeks. And hopefully we'll have news about Edward's remains. So, in several weeks, I did get a phone call, and they said, we have identified Edward's Talbert's remains, and we are planning to send them home. And I thought, how in the world? I mean, this is just a miracle. After 80 years, you're going to send the remains home. That's people ask me how I felt about it. I just overwhelmed. Yeah, you just can't believe it. She said there'll be a commander that will come out of the Memphis office. She will fly into the Charlotte airport. She will have one of the Navy there in the Charlotte region to accompany her, and they will come to your home, and they will go over all the details. So they met with us at the very end of October, and they came in, and I kept looking out the window, and I seen one car drive up, and the Navy man, and he was still sitting in the car, and I thought, well, I'll go out and introduce myself to him. So I walked out there, and I introduced myself to him, and he told me who he was. And I said, well, come on in the house, come on in. He says, I can't. And I thought, well, how come you can't come in? He says, my commander's not here. And I thought, oh, okay. He says, when my commander gets here, I will escort her into your house. I thought, this is military. Okay, all right, I'll go back in the house and wait. So, just in a few minutes, Commander Lowe drove up, and she sat down at our dining room table. Her and the man from the Charlotte office, his name was Wendell Nelson. He's here. He's out at the cemetery, I understand. And she came out here and she brought a book about yay thick. And we sit there and she went over mostly everything in the book. Couldn't go over everything. It had a wealth of information. The first part was all about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. She had pictures, aerial photos, all about that. The middle section was about the DNA section. I found through that and I realized right quick, I didn't know what word it's talking about. There's words in there I've never seen before. I couldn't even pronounce it. So I flipped it on over, she told about everything. Of course, it had the details of Edward. Had the attack on Pearl Harbor in there. Had his application or his enrollment where he filled out. And one of the very first questions that it had, why do you want to join the Navy? And he said, like a work. So I guess not back in 1940, there wasn't a lot of work going on. I feel like since my grandfather was disabled, and I feel like one of the reasons that he might have joined the Navy, that would have been a little bit of a regular check coming in, and he could have helped his parents out. That's just my thought about that. Okay, he had his copy of his death certificate. I can't, you know what I mean. Yeah. That paper, yeah. Certificate, okay. And had a lot of the Navy letters in there. Okay, all right, now. All right. So, I'm just about finished, y'all. All right. So, when we went through that book, the commander closed the book, and I just watched her. She kind of closed it, and she kind of patted it up. And she says, now, Mike, when do you want us to send Edward home? And we sit there with my sister and my wife here, and Tommy, that's Linda's husband. We was kind of just thinking, and she says it's going to take us 45 days to get the body ready, the remains ready, get all the arrangements ready, and it may take a little longer than 45 days. We looked at the calendar, and that was going to pull it right up at Christmas, this past Christmas. And we thought, well, that's a bad time to be at the airport. You know how the airports are at Christmas. So she asked, well, how's your weather in January and February? And I kind of laughed and smiled. I said, it could be 70 degrees, or it could be sleeting, raining, and snowing. And if you remember our January, we had 3 weeks here in Shelby County. Thank goodness we didn't do that. And let's skip February. I was wanting to do it in spring. So my wife had already marked January the 26th.
March 26th.
Thank you. March the 26th. She corrects me. It's all right. You guys know what I mean. Yeah. All right, March 26th. This March the 26th, which is today. This is Edward's 100th birthday. This is his birthday today, and when we read that, we always thought, yes, that is it. So here we have today, paying honor to a fallen soldier who made the ultimate sacrifice for his country. Now, Edward was the last person that they identified on the Oklahoma. I know Commander Lowe said that this is it. The book is closed on Oklahoma now, and we'll go to another ship or some other person that has died in a conflict. And that's what this lady did. She's traveled all over the United States. That was her job to do this. Okay. Let's see. One thing, I'm done all this. Okay. One thing I'd like to say to all the veterans. Let's see. All right. First thing. If any of you veterans have, had been in any conflict or anything, you need to write it down. You need to keep a record of it because it is very important. You don't know in the future your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, they may want to know about what happened. And you need to write it down because I know I have talked to some people that had someone killed in World War II, an uncle. They don't know nothing about it. So you were to write it down so somebody will have this. And one other thing. If any of you veterans know of anything about Pearl Harbor and you'd like to tell me, I appreciate it. If I had said something maybe wrong, seemed like a lot of newspaper articles, and sometimes there's a little difference here and there, you let me know. I want to have everything correct. I just like to know that. Okay. I really appreciate everybody coming here. I hope I done Edward justice on telling about him. Didn't have a lot to go on, but thank you very much. Okay.
There's a man who lives beside me who fought in World War II. He proudly waves old glory from high atop his roof. He starts out every morning like it's Independence Day. I've seen him at attention salute the flag and say, I love this land from sea to shining sea. I love this land, home of the brave and free. I love the liberty, the justice, and the
all of that. I'm Bo Longman. I'm Veteran Service Officer of Stanley County and extremely proud to be here. Thank y'all for all coming out to honor this hero that we have here. I also want to honor all my veterans. Some of y'all I know I've actually met many, many times. It's an honor for me to be the service officer for you each and every day here in Stanley County. It's a dream job for me. It's something that every day I walk out feeling better about myself and better about all of Stanley County, knowing all these veterans are here. Just want to do a short tie-in for how this kind of affects me. My great-grandfather Burris had 5 sons. All 5 joined the Navy in World War II. All 5 served all over the Pacific and the Atlantic during World War II. All 5 were lucky enough to come home. I didn't really know much because they were so much older than me. We would be at family reunions and they would be in their little group talking. And like a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, you know, I just listened. And then you didn't really understand what it meant, wear the uniform, serve your country. But to listen to these men talk and just a banter, you know, how they every day was, you know, how chow sucked, how, you know, everything was this and that, but everything they were going through every day, they didn't know what was going to happen to them. They all came home, they started their lives, had great families, had great jobs, but they were heroes. And people now have kind of lost the understanding because 20 to 30% of the there were over 16 million veterans in World War II that wore the uniform, men and women. And now less than 1% serve our country, and a tiny fraction of that see combat. So you don't really see, everybody does not understand. We love our veterans, but you don't understand. So if you could, when you see a veteran, shake his hand. You don't know if he's going through PTSD, you don't know if he's having, you know, issues, but they are the greatest Americans out there. We wear the uniform every day, you know, whether we're retired, we're disabled, we still in our heart wear the uniform. So just wanted to put that perspective from the veteran side of it out there. And I also like to call Mr. Bill Crawley up. He's the commander for Talbot Wagner. So I appreciate everybody coming out, and I appreciate y'all being here for Mr. Talbot. Thank you.
It is an honor for me to speak to you people. I lost an uncle in the Battle of the Bulge, so I know about loss. I'd like to say I've been associated with Post 6369 since I was a teenager, when they sponsored the baseball team. And I played on that team. And there were a lot of World War II veterans in that post. And I could name a long list of them, but I looked up to them then, and I do now. I'd also like to say, if these people singing didn't get your heart beating, if you didn't feel a sense of pride in our country, then you need to have your pulse checked. It is a real honor for our post to bear Everett Talbot's name. We're Talbot Wagner Post 6369, New London, Richfield. And what I would like to say most of all is, Everett, welcome home, brother. Amen.
thank you and your family. It's been a great celebration today. Let's stand and be dismissed, and we'll make our way over to the center. Let's stand and have a word. Yes, and the family will go out after the prayer. Father, we're grateful today for what we've heard.